He was always a happy guy. We just let the gear down on the boat, and he'd always rub his hands together, thinking that, God dang, when that net comes up, I'm going to be a millionaire. And sure enough, that's, probably not a millionaire, but maybe in Mexican money. Well, as you see here, I got a few pictures of my little baby brother, Mark. This is a good one here, though. This is a couple years ago. 80 years old, Pasquale right here, Pasquale's Restaurant, Victoria Street in Santa Barbara. Used to be across from the Greyhound bus depot on Carrillo Street. Right here is kind of a crummy weather day coming home from out here where it's nice, flat, calm. Big wave hitting the boat, knocking it over and almost rolling it on its side right there. It's kind of a neat picture. This is the first hit right there, a big wave hitting the boat and rolling the boat over. And then right here is a wave rolling under the boat and the boat about ready to tip over right there. And there's nothing saving you because you have your arms down. That's the only thing that stabilizes the boat. Once you got inside this buoy, you raised the arms up and you were somewhat safe. You always had the people up here that wanted to see you crash and burn, but you kind of, there's a lot of times, because back when I was fishing with Mark, we'd come in when it's pretty crummy like that, and we'd have toilet paper wrapped around our heads like samurais or kamikaze guys. Put the toilet paper around our heads, and we'd come in and we'd make it in, of course, and we'd drop our pants. We'd get on the side of the boat and drop our pants, and to all the vultures, we call them vultures, that would hang out there and watch us come in, because they want to see someone die. And we weren't dying. We were coming in. We had fish to unload, so it was a lot of fun. We'd have the toilet paper on our heads, and we'd drop our pants. This one here, it's a hat party here in Cayucas about 5 years ago. It was a lot of fun. We couldn't get in the door without a goofy hat, so we had their goofy hats. It was a lot of fun. But we had a blast living up here in Morro Bay. If it wasn't for Mark, I wouldn't be up here in Morro Bay. I'd be back in Santa Barbara, paying rent instead of having a mortgage. So it's good that Mark got me up here. I can afford a house. I was working for our dad at the clothing store, and he called up one day and said, I need a guy. This guy just left the fishing boat, and I need a third crewman. I need another guy to be on the boat. And I was just fresh back from San Francisco, about 3 months. And I was working in radio back in Santa Barbara at Y97 and KTMS. And I was just a young kid figuring, oh, shoot, I'll get another job somewhere else, but I'll go fishing now. I haven't seen Mark in 5 years. So I told Dad, I got to go. And Dad drove me up here, and we all had a meal at Great American Fish Company, and Dad left, and I was fishing. It was pretty fun. Of course, I threw up the first trip. It was a long trip down to San Diego, about 100 miles off the coast of San Diego, a place called the Cortez Bank. That was my very first fishing trip. And yeah, it was fun. I was hooked, if you want to say it. We never used hooks, but I was hooked. It was a really good life, and I mentioned during the service that it was working in your backyard, living at home, working out of your backyard. That's the way it was. We had a really good, big boat, comfortable. It was fun. He was a good guy. Back at at the service earlier, Dave Yates was up here, and I think we got Dave Yates on camera. He didn't talk about the ramp. When you get 14 or 15 years old, you got a good bicycle, and what's the first thing you want to do? You want to jump it. So they get a ramp, and they got the ramp, and they jumped all the neighborhood kids. All the kids that weren't on the bicycles would lay down on the sidewalk, side by side, and how many kids can you jump today? Well, they jumped, there weren't any kids left. They jumped everybody, and that was pretty cool. They jumped me because I was smart. I didn't want to go on the ramp. The ramp was, someone's discarded front door stacked with about 2 feet of 2x4s and 2x6s. The slightest wind would have knocked the whole thing over, but they hit it with their bikes at about 25, 30 miles an hour and jumped the entire neighborhood. It was pretty cool. I never did it. The one time I did jump Mark's bike, though, I broke it. So he didn't like me after that. He was the kind of guy that would save up. He wouldn't ask anyone for any money. He would save up, and he would do without before getting what he wanted. Then when he had the money, he'd go get what he wanted, and it would be his and no one else's. But he let me ride his bike one day, a mongoose bike, and I hit the ramp and I broke his bike. He was all right with that, though. He just got a better bike after that. He didn't mind. Him and Dave Yates were the evil Knievels of our neighborhood. It was a lot of fun. Mark and I were young kids. We'd go to bed. We'd share the same room when we were younger. We had a nice big house. But one room was an office, and we had one room as our bedroom, and then Mom and Dad, of course, had their room. Well, when Mark and I were still sharing a room, we'd go to bed. Dad or Mom would say, okay, kids, it's time to go to bed. And we'd hustle off to bed. The lights would go out, and I would get bombed by socks. Mark would have all these rolled-up socks, and Mom would roll up our socks for us, and he would just empty his sock drawer and just chuck them at me. And I'd have all these pairs of socks. He'd just pepper me with them, and I'd throw them back, and then he'd throw them back at me, and then we were always throwing his socks. They'd always end up on my end of the bed, because I would just, being the older guy, I'm done with this. But Mark would just nail me with socks when the lights went out. And next morning, Mom would get us up and say, okay, kids, it's time to go to school. Got to get to school. And Mark would he'd zip over to my bed and go between the wall and pull the bed out and start digging around. And my mom would, like, what are you doing, Mark? You're supposed to be getting dressed. He said, Mom, I'm getting my socks. I need to put socks on. My socks are all under here under Mike's bed, so I got to get them. She never asked why. I have a pretty good idea. She knew why. We were just having a little fun at night, and that's okay. But every sock that he had in his drawer would end up on my face or next to my bed every night. It's pretty fun. We go to bed listening to Dodger baseball games on KTMS. And as soon as the lights would go out, bam, here come the socks. It was fun. It was a good memory. Simms Pure Juice was one of the innovators of the new skateboard revolution. Before, Mark left a lot of skin on the pavement with the clay wheels, the Chicago wheels and trucks, and you hit a pebble on those skateboards and you would you would wipe out. And there was plenty of Mark on the sidewalk up and around our neighborhood, me too. But then Simms Pure Juice came out with these really cool wheels, urethane wheels, and Cadillac wheels came out at the same time. So Simms, being a local Santa Barbara company, we got into their stuff. And we were skateboard freaks, and we'd go up to the old Japanese tea gardens up behind Montecito, behind Hancock College, and we would go skate there with a girl named Edie, who's a really good chef. I can't remember, she's a chef in Santa Barbara somewhere. But Edie was a really good skateboarder, a girl, and we were right behind her skateboarding at these big tea gardens, big giant bowls. And boy, we had a lot of fun skateboarding there. Then we'd do a little tandem skateboard all the way down to Westmont College. And it was fun up there. And we had a lot of fun skateboarding, and we were kind of like in the beginning of the new skateboard trend that's hitting now with Tony Hawk and all the guys. But we were in it back in the late 70s, and any drainage ditch was a place to have fun on the skateboard. But Mark, when he got his license, my mom had a 1976 Nova hatchback. And we had the monopoly with the newspaper route in our neighborhood. We were almost like the Sopranos. No one could take it from us. I had it for 4 years. Mark had it for 4 years. And it was the Moreno's newspaper route. You're not going to mess with us. But I did my route in a bicycle. And then when Mark got the route, I was old enough to drive. So he never rode a bike on his paper route early on in his years, but then I drove him around in our Nova, the field car we call it. It was our mom's car, and she doesn't know what we used to do to it, but we had a lot of fun with that car. 1976 Nova, yeah.
What you guys do?
Well, we'd take it up to Hope School, and we'd you know, we do donuts and just tear up the lawn, and we pretty much caused a lot of damage. Something at this point now we'd probably think it was pretty stupid to do, but it was a lot of fun back then because it didn't cost us a dime. That's the best part. But Mark had the luxury of the field car. Sunday mornings, I get up with him at 5:30 in the morning. We fold the newspapers, and we go throw them all in the field car, and we go deliver the newspapers. And he was done by 6:30, and we were watching Wonderama on Channel 11 with Bob McAllister. How many of you remember that? Look it up on the internet. As I mentioned earlier, Mark would always save his money up, and he would buy the best stuff. Well, Mark had the best stereo equipment of anyone his age. Growing up, my dad gave me an 8-track stereo player from Silverwoods. Well, that was really cool. That was a good stereo player, but Mark went out and got all these different components: a Kenwood amplifier, a tuner, a big expensive turntable, and he had the best stuff. And one of my favorite times of this whole deal with his stereo was when Mom and Dad went to Europe in the year of my graduation. They went to Europe in like late May or early June, right before I was to graduate from high school. They were there, of course, for my graduation, but we had the patented Moreno wall of sound. We took all my speakers and all of Mark's speakers and put them in the living room and moved all his stereo equipment out front and just blasted. It was a lot of fun. And I remember Dad going to, after they had come back from Europe, Dad was taking our dog Riley for a walk. And one of the neighbors said, "Sal, how come you didn't invite me to a party?" And my dad said, "What? I don't know. What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you guys had a big party last Saturday. What's going on?" And that was news to my dad, and we kind of heard about that later on. It was good. It was good stuff. Then he, of course, found bottle caps, beer caps underneath the couch cushions that my friends had graciously left. But you know, it couldn't be bad, though, because I had Jerry Firestone in there drinking beer, and at the time his dad was mayor of Santa Barbara. So, you know, we were all right. We had an out. We had the mayor's kid at the house. We did a lot of camping, and there was one year where we went up to Coldwater Campground behind Figueroa Mountain. And Mark at that time was still susceptible to poison oak. Poison oak was going to wipe him out. So what did the old boy do? He went out to get firewood wrapped in poison oak. And he brought it back and said, "Hey, I got some good firewood," threw it right on the fire, and then all he's doing all night long is inhaling poison oak smoke. And by the time we got back home to Santa Barbara, he wasn't doing good at all. He had poison oak in his lungs, and he wasn't a happy camper anymore. But he was taking medication from the doctor that eventually weaned him off being allergic to poison oak. But that was a pretty, actually I look back at it, it's pretty funny though. The guy got firewood and ended up getting poison oak. He was 14 with a lung full of poison oak. I mean, it was funny. He knew what he was doing. He just brought back firewood. That's all. We wanted a fire, he wanted a fire, and he found some dry firewood, had poison oak wrapped around it. Because being a guy that was allergic to poison oak, he knew what poison oak looked like. So he just brought it back anyway and kept us warm, but he got poison oak.